We thank Ready4R because Ready4R has come on the scene like an earthquake and really improved the media dynamic in a way that we needed.
No, go ahead.
We actually on right now.
Okay.
I got my favorite personalities from the conscious community, or whatever community you want to call it. Dr. Ali Muhammad, Divine Prospect. I want to take it to autonomy. That's where my heart is at. I mean, me and Divine were talking about these earth ships earlier. I actually got the idea from one of the Arna meetings. Brother brought the idea, and I said, wow, the self-sustaining home, it seems like freedom or living off the grid, self-sustaining, all these things can actually be actualized today. Like we always want to live for our kids, but it seems like we could live now away from what they want to call Babylon or racism, white supremacy. I want you guys to speak on that concept a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, specifically on the earth grids, the designs are immaculate, man, and it's like up to date, and people are on it. Like it's happening. The issue becomes with each family sustaining oneself's economic, being economically viable enough to make the shift from the regular functions into that, and the education that is necessary also to sustain it. Because you have to know a little bit about electricity, a little bit about the equipment that you're going to be using, a little bit about latrines and using other things that are non-regular, sewer systems or whatever. They do have those types of things, but my point is moving towards whenever we do things as groups, it's always more efficient. One of the reasons why we created Honor is to create a think tank, so when we start thinking about these types of things, we can move in groups. No one can do anything as an individual and be successful or be happy in doing it. You know what I mean? So all of those opportunities are there. My position and my function as far as my officership is to get people together enough to trust each other to invest in each other. That's all I want to do. You know what I mean? If it's promoting it through education, it's promoting it through the curriculum, if it's getting people more efficient in some level of whatever they're doing that I specifically have responsibility in, getting that proficiency to a level, and then once it's at a level, there's nothing to talk about after that. It's just acting. And we already at that level with some things. It just needs to become more proficient with more people. So autonomy is the discussion, because there is no other. What other discussion you're gonna have? You know what I mean? And autonomy, what that means to me is we're putting together our creative ideas, and they're sustained only by our operative function. Like we're putting together, we're thinking, we're mapping it out, we're financing it. That's it. And when you think about what runs the world today, businesses run the world. That's it. Or different aspects of the world. So what businesses are we creating that will be the demand that's going to meet the supply that needs it? You see what I'm saying? So if Ready4R is creating a food type of dynamic, that's because people are sick as hell, and that's going to be the new thing, or is the new thing, that in 5-10 years that will be the mega company. You see what I'm saying? We got to think like that, because that's all we always been. We always been the people who bring the ingenuity.
And I agree. Well, what I would say on top of that, dealing with the earth ships, the important thing in regards to autonomy is being able to craft up a culture to safeguard you from foreign influences. And when you create a dynamic such as a community whereby which you're autonomous, self-sufficient, and independent, whoever's in that circle will be able to understand what the culture entails and employ those techniques, so that way you can safeguard your community. The problem with our community now via integration is that we have no safeguards on our culture. And what happens is our culture gets engineered by the oppressor, and the oppressor decides what's good for us and what's not good for us. The good thing about having Aboriginal communities is that we now control the cultural structure, from the political realm to the health paradigm to the economic paradigm, all the way to the spiritual endowment that we are allowing in our culture. And when you take this system off the grid. What the purpose is to create a prototype, because there's some people that have these communities and can operate within our current status that we're in this society. Some people need to be off the grid to completely safeguard everything. One of the interesting things that we've been talking about in regards to autonomy is the home births, and that's something that we were just talking about, the home wife situation. Also, we want to be able to do homeschooling, which is because everything starts in the family with the home. Homeschooling. The next thing we want to do is how can we create and generate our own currency, right? That will have value within our culture. Because the ultimate thing is that how do we safeguard that culture in every aspect of reality, so that way any foreign influence will be identified and be rejected. Because now here, we don't know what to reject. We have so much Stockholm syndrome that we think everything that the oppressor gives us is our identity, and it's not. So this is the most important thing as far as autonomy, is how are you safeguarding your culture. And this is why we create organizations and systems to safeguard that, so that way our children growing up will know what's the norm within that culture and know to reject that which is foreign. The same way when you have a body that's working optimally, it'll know what's foreign based on the proteins on the surface as opposed to what's friendly within the body. And we want to create a same system by looking at nature and do the same thing in actuality and in practice with our own communities.
I want you to talk on the platform that you have, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. Let us know exactly the services, why it's important, and then I'd like for Ali to go into the Aboriginal Republic of North America, the same situation, why is it important, and is there room for building between,
well, to start off with Kingdom Harbinger Ministries is that what we're doing is creating an indigenous system here in the U.S. by going back to the pre-exilic roots of the text. The problem is that the text that we have today has been modified, has been tampered with, etc. So what we're trying to do is go back
text
to...
from...
Oh, the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what some call the Bible. So what we're doing is we're trying to go back to the indigenous system that the people or the individuals in that realm had when they were people of color, before things got redacted. So by going into these ancient spiritual systems that we had, we're extracting those precepts and we're finding a way to transmit it today. And one of those precepts is being debt. So one of the things that we offer is a debt cancellation program that we do by dealing with contract law. So one of the precepts for that is in the text. It talks about the Jubilee year, or debt being alleviated. So what we're doing is we understand that through contract law or covenant law, you have what's called compelled performance. But every contract can be amended if you take the appropriate route to do so. So what we're doing is that we're alleviating people away from debt. Why? Because when a person comes into a lecture or any kind of role in a society or body politic, if they have to deal with debt, that's going to be something that's going to burden their mind, and it's going to hinder them from actually giving their best or giving their all. So what we're doing is that we're implementing this debt cancellation program, so that way we can get people to eliminate their debt. We also assist them with naturopathic health plans, and the objective of the naturopathic health plan is give them an alternative, a low-income alternative to Obamacare. Obamacare is not for our people, and I'm saying this on record. I don't have no 501c3, so I don't have no political gag order to say it. But Obamacare is not for our people, but our people sometimes are unable to afford proper health insurance because they don't have the appropriate funding to do so. So we've created a naturopathic way that we can give them health plans, so that way, depending on what their ailment is and what they need for holistic healing, we can give that to them in true application for a low cost. And other things that we do, as far as assisting with the agriculture down there in the South, in Georgia, in the carpentry programs and the survival programs that we're doing right now. We're trying to launch a survival program so that people can learn how to live off the land. They can know what foods are edible, what's not edible. They can know how to shoot an arrow, create an arrow. So all of these things are very important, because the ultimate objective is for us to create our own autonomous societies off the grid when the time comes. And before you do that, you have to transition people with different programs so they can understand these skills. You can filter them out over the years to see who is going to be viable to this program or who's not. So that's pretty much what our objective is. So we're not just taking the text and being dogmatic with it. We're actually making it come alive by creating a community, so we can create a culture to safeguard the people within that culture, and we can control everything autonomously off the grid.
Okay.
Great, indeed. Honor is pretty simple. If you don't know what honor stands for, it's Aboriginal Republic of North America. My inspiration for it is exclusively from being a part of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and seeing the greatness, even at that time in the 90s, and also seeing the historical greatness of our people and, the predecessor groups, the Honorable Marcus Josiah Garvey. It's exclusively about getting black excellence in the same room under the auspices that we love each other enough to do something for ourselves. That's it. That's the magic of it. And that's all we're going to continue to do. The processes and procedures on how to run businesses and other things, I think that from my own experience with my own ability to create things, it always comes out when we're together. You see what I'm saying? Like, black excellence has no limit. So our ability to create the survival mechanisms and all that stuff, it all comes into play when we're all in the same room. So that's what honor is about. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a member of the Nation of Islam, but I think that ideology that was laid out of black loyalty and understanding the intrusion of foreigners as something that should be a part of our law system that we recognize that is dangerous, and then holding each other accountable to that as a law dynamic. I think that's important. And the reason why I think it's important is because those principles are expressed in nature, they're expressed in our history and our past, and we've learned to know. We don't have to keep going over the same things. Like, we know who these people are, we know what they do, we know our brilliance, we're upset about not being able to exude it, but the only thing that's stopping us from exuding it is us coming together and saying, yo, let's just say, F all these people, let's get ourselves in the same room under the same systems of law, values. And if we can do that, everybody can be a part of something where they can both express their brilliance, but they can also be held accountable. I think if we can weigh those scales, we don't even need to even talk about how the dynamics are going to come in place. They're already there in place. You know what I mean? We got brilliance everywhere. So that's all honor is about. Art is about bringing black excellence in the same room and then figuring out how to keep it together.
One of the words or phrases that's been that I've noticed has been coming out is this word called body politic. Is body politic what you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would want people to adopt a specific body politic that has specific rules, laws, spiritual systems, and then that's the road to autonomy. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Nations run. Everybody does things as nations on this planet, or governments, or whether they're small communities or larger communities. I think what's unique about black people in history that is not shining forth enough now is that we knew enough about how things worked in the universe and how to take a copy of that and place it into our social systems. You follow what I'm saying? So there are certain things that are in the universe that are immutable. They're just laws. And if you learn how to extract those and keep those as principles in a society, you perpetuate success for good as long as the people are following that. Today, we go what appears to be successful, but it's non-permanent. So we're going through these cycles in Africa or other places where we have some success, but it's dependent upon foreigners to keep it. So our study has to be there. And the only thing that I've ever seen in my life, and this is not being biased, the only thing I've ever seen in my life is what was set up with the Nation of Islam in a larger, operation, where that dynamic was there as an ideology and a value system, and black people just went on ahead and with it and made it successful. And there are other examples that were preceded that, but what was unique about that is that it was completely outside of the social parameters of what was regular, and it was still successful. You follow me? So now you can be successful, but you gotta be a little bit moderate. You gotta polish it down a little bit. I don't think we should have to polish down anything. I think that we should just be ourselves and be very happy about it. And whoever's offended, so what? Who cares? We don't even need you to do what we do. You follow me? And that makes us comfortable enough so that we can be ourselves. A lot of times people feel like they have to compromise or join on with foreign forces just to get something to come back to bring to our people. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes that is necessary because we've lost a lot. But we have to have the spirit of, we can do it ourselves. And I think that that's the guiding prevailing energy that will sustain us. Anything other than that, it's like clipping at our consciousness. It's taken away from our ability to sustain it.
So what I'll say that, just to complement that, your question was about a body politic. Body politic is some of the rudimentary principles in regards to governing, okay? And the important principles of governing is that, number one, like he was saying, you have to re-engineer the social construct that has been implemented in our community because we don't trust each other. And when you have a lack of trust, then you cannot have a body politic. Now, what the powers that be does is that because they know they can't trust, they create contracts. Contracts gives you compelled performance, and you have to be able to follow every letter of that contract. If not, there are agreed upon penalties. So in regards to governing each other, we have to understand how contracts work. The thing about us as a people, because we don't trust each other, or we think we do, we don't create contracts to safeguard us when things start to go awry. And this is very important because this is what the oppressor uses to keep us subjugated. We have been entered into various involuntary contracts and not knowing the compelled performance, and then we think we have some sense of liberty or freedom, but yet when they pull our card, it's because we have violated that contract. We have not dealt with the contract to actually alleviate us of the debt, the obligation, and also the moral responsibility to what we were either entered into or not entered into. So when it comes to a body politic, once we have left that system, us contracts, when we deal with each other, we come together and say, okay, how can we govern ourselves if we call ourselves a nation? What are the different aspects of this government? Because everybody can't play the same role. You know, this is why I only encourage people, and Ali said it earlier in his lecture, to go to these institutions to pull trades to bring it back into the community. And this is why also out in Atlanta, where we're starting in the fall, is a veterans program, because the objective is to pull veterans in, extract their skill sets, and give it back to the community, because they've learned how to be autonomous while being overseas. Because some of them were ex-Navy SEALs, some of them were doing special ops, so they had to be autonomous in the community, and they studied and observed how the indigenous people lived, and they bring those skills back to us because they're not doing nothing with them anymore. So in creating a body politic, contracts is very important. Trust is number 2, but number 3, how do we govern people who have been subjugated to another system for a long period of time? And this is why law or jurisprudence, or being jurisprudent, is very important, because we have to re-engineer our people to be able to trust law. A lot of times, because we've been going to jail or we get summoned and stuff, we're scared of law, but we don't realize that once you leave that system alone, you still got to deal with a system of law. And when you study the order of the cosmos, like Ali says, or even in nature or the human body itself, these principles have been endowed by the Creator, and it's there for us to take and use it for ourselves. You understand? We have to be a reflection of that on a macro level, which we see either on a micro level or on a cosmic level. So the important thing as a body policy comes together, how can we create a system of law for indigenous people and not the way our oppressors set it up? And this way we can start to do contracts where we trust each other. We can say, you know what, this is your particular disposition, this is ours, but because we have a contract and a mutual agreement to respect what each other has to bring to the table, because we're working together in a governmental system, now we can have our little pockets where, okay, this area does this area does that, and then we can work together and function like a body instead of being an autoimmune disease, because that's what we're going to wind up being. If everybody does not come on the same page, you're going to create a body, but then everybody's going to be attacking each other, and then you're going to take the whole house down, and there's not going to be no success. So
months ago, maybe over a year ago, Dr. Ali, Brother Polite, they were going to figure out how to not say merge, but work together with the New Covenant, the New Covenant, and Arna. That didn't pan out. Now we have Kingdom Harbinger Ministries and Arna again sitting in front of Ready4R. Is there any way? I know there's no debate between you guys. There's no big event, but is there a way that you two brothers could actually maybe create some type of council or some type of communication where, you know, my brother's in the south, you're in the northeast mostly. We could create a camaraderie and share ideas to you know what's working in Arna, what isn't working, what's working for Divine, what isn't working, and you know figure out what's actually working.
Yeah, you know what? I think that the first thing, the first steps would be us sitting down in private with other people who are part of the boards and the leadership in those communities, and then figuring out how we can share some things, because I think that's very, very important to our viability. A lot of the circumstances that we have are either spiritual or economic, and because of the area that he's coming from, traditional scriptural reference points for value systems, and then us having that same thing, I think that's very vital, because we're dealing with tradition that morphed over time with Islam and the Israelite traditions and those things and African traditions, spiritual traditions, period, and indigenous spiritual traditions, and they all have a common theme. And I think that if we can create a language, all right, a language around that common theme, and we already just spoke on it, you know, how to take these laws and make them applicable. If we create a theme and discuss that and support each other, then I think that's good. And then the other side is, the economic and the educational sides. What is Arna doing that we can present in seminar form to Kingdom Heart of Ministry so that they can adapt that as a program if they're not doing it already, and what can we do vice versa to do those things. And I think that that's important to our people. And we got a march coming up, and let me say this. Whenever we want to come together, we have to come together because we have something to come together on. A lot of times people want to come together and they don't have nothing to come together on. And they're just talking.
Exactly.
All right? So we have to have something to come together on. If I want to come and share how we run our health ministry, how we run the certifications, the curriculum information or whatever, and I was like, look, take these materials. This is how we run this. I'm going to do a 3-day seminar in private. Y'all want to run this Kingdom Heart of Ministry? If y'all don't have that already, then y'all can add this to it or whatever. Those are the types of meetings that we need more of in the private. So by the time we come in the public, it's already shown that we're doing synonymous things. That's how the body works. You have different cells that carry out different functions, but they have one goal. The whole one goal is to keep the body together for survival. So a lot of these things are so simple. The blockages come when we get distracted because we need resources, right? I'll give you an example. We're hit by a lot of things. Anybody who has a job now, the Affordable Healthcare Act basically is saying you got a tax on you right now that you can't change that. Like, you're going to have to invest in it unless you're an entrepreneur, or you can have, like, well, we have an indigenous business where you don't have to even participate in that. I'm never going to need that. I'm never going to need that, one, because contractually I have a viable option that's other than that because of how we construct our businesses, the autonomy of our businesses, and I understand the healthcare dynamic where we have our own system and values on what is preserving health. You know what I mean? We may not have dentists right now or something like that, but we can get that specialization because our children can go to school and then they've already grown up in what's healthy. So now when they become dentists and they form an indigenous business, you see what I'm saying? So this generation, the next generation, we got like 3 generations that we're looking at, our children and our children's children and us, where we can solve a lot of problems. And by the time that 3rd generation comes, you know, economically, culturally, or whatever, the things that we're looking for in mass to happen, they've already happened in these little places. So it's a template that's been set out. And it's really easy. You just got to do what you're doing and do it better, over time.
What I'll say to add to that is that I believe that privately we should come to the table and exchange. Say, hey, this is what works in our program. Do you guys have it? They'll say, hey, this works in our program. Do you have it? And I think the good thing is that when we're able to come together, then we can manifest conferences that has to do with unity. Because we don't have conferences where everybody has their own organization and say, hey, before the public, we're displaying to them, this is what we offer, this is what you offer. I've seen a couple of debates or conferences, and that part has really took maybe that amount of time when that should have been the focal point of what a lecture or conference should be. How do you unify at the end of the day? Because we're all going to have differences, but what's the common denominator? And we have to treat it almost like a mathematical formula to see, okay, you know what? Your numerator is this, your numerator is that. But denominator-wise, what is bringing this stuff together? How do we make this integral whole so that way everybody's playing their role? And I think that's the most important thing, because you can have several different industries and organizations and they can still come together and work. If we look at society, that's what they're doing now, and they have their differences. So we should be able to manifest that on our own level, and when we come to the table and start to exchange ideas without fearing the fact that we're going to lose some degree of autonomy. I think that's the problem. People they have an ego and they want to hold on to something so much that they're afraid to let anything go. And by doing that, you're causing harm not just to yourself, but to anybody else that can benefit from that. When we start to actually say, you know what, okay, you know what, let's make a contract just to safeguard a couple of things and make sure nobody's treating each other a certain kind of way. And once we have that contract, we know we have an obligation in that contract, and now that creates a level of trust and security and insurance, so that way when we do exchange ideas, nobody would feel that they're losing their degree of autonomy and their individuality. So we have to be able to learn how to work in a communal system, because if we study any of these ancient communal systems, that's how they operated. You understand what I'm saying? We don't operate like that no more, because we're in the 21st century, and again, the culture that was given to us is from our oppressor. So when we come together, we have to have something in common, and the common thing is, listen, we know who our oppressor is. That's number one. We know the system that's oppressing us. We know that, number one. Number two, we know we have needs in the community. How can we create these resources? And number three, we know that we want to pass this on, our legacy, on to the children. So if these three things are fundamental, then everything else will fall into place, because we'll understand everything that's necessary to sustain both our organizations, and by working together and exchanging resources, that'll ensure that if something happens to him, because I have a contract with his organization, I have to care too, because I have an invested interest in his success. And we have to start treating each other that way. And when we do so, if something happens to my brother, I'm coming to his aid, but there's no contractual agreement or no obligation, I'm going to go this way. Right. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to have a dependent need on one another, and at the same time have autonomy in our roles in order to create this system so that we can present it to the public or our community, and they can see unity. They're not going to trust us if there's no unity. If we're banging each other all the time, the public is not going to trust that. That's like gang banging. Okay, it's like pick a side and see who's better. And we have to refrain from that and come together and work together on a common denominator.
Yeah, you know, one thing just to add on to that, and this is a very simple point to make, but this is something I'm observing. I just speak specifically to men, and on the ego thing and all that. A lot of the psychosomatic behavior that we have is because of what we missed when we were in our early stages. And one thing I can say for myself is my memory of my father was that he was always there to give me a feeling of confidence that my purpose was being lived, kind of. Even in just, you know, working me out in the backyard, playing football, I always felt like whatever I was doing, it was purposeful. And I never was lost on my purpose. Sometimes when people get lost on their purpose and then they get into a position of influence, the ego kicks in because they're really not confident in what they're doing, so they don't feel confident seeing other people shining. You see what I'm saying? So it's those barriers can be broken by continuing to build healthy families. Because if your my study has been most men who have their fathers there, they have had them there in a meaningful way, or a father figure, grandfather, uncle, or something. They can get over those things. Or sometimes a very strong mother. You know what I mean? Like, you know, mothers can make up for that. That having that allows for a comfortable feeling to see excellence in others. And anytime people have ego, is because they're not comfortable seeing excellence in others. And those are the things that people are bringing to organizations. So the healing has to start at a level that's primal and then branch off to these areas, and not enough of that is happening. I think it will happen as we continue to kind of, you know, do better in those areas.
I don't want to close out yet. It's something that's on my heart and my mind. How important is it to focus on a dietary lifestyle in regards to having a sustainable system? My brother on the right side, Divine Prospect, we're supposed to be doing a collaboration in regards to Ready4R food. You're going to be taking up the dietary lifestyle that I promote, the fruitarian lifestyle, slowly and as you can handle it. Dr. Ali Muhammad, he talks about a very similar fruitarian raw food lifestyle. I want to know, how important is it? Like, do you see the future societies, if it's going to be autonomous? Do you see it being a mixture of meat eaters, vegetarians, fruitarians? How do you see it?
Well, ultimately, we have to get rid of meat. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That was not the original prescribed diet for indigenous people. You know, we adapted over time based on our environment, what we had access to, etc. But now that we have the tools and able to look into microbiology and examine the anatomy of the human body, we see that even our mouth, if you look at our mouth is not even created. Our teeth is not even created to really tear apart meat. You know what I'm saying? If so, we have more pronounced canines, etc. So we know that we would have to resort to a diet that deals with fruits and vegetables. Now, once you get to that part, you'll have people that say, well, we're going to stay vegan. And people that say, well, we'll be fruitarians. But once you are able to deuce it to that point, I think that once we wean away from any processed foods, once we wean away from any meats or anything of that nature, then we understand by examining biology that that is the pristine diet for us as a melanated indigenous people. So if we have a community and we're living off the land, we have to understand what we're going to utilize as a resource for the body. The body needs resources just like we need resources. And if we give it the right food, this is another way that we can enhance our social construct, because we don't realize that when you have a buildup of particular nitrogen, like he said, which is the byproduct from eating flesh, when your liver is swelling because it's attempting to break down and catalyze and detoxify the system, and you have all of these things going internally, it manifests in your character and your behavior and your disposition, etc. So diet is very, very important because it will give you the discipline that you need to listen, the discipline you need to see, and the discipline you need to think. And when you have these basic elements that are in self, then it'll start to reflect on one another, and then you'll start to see value in each other because you'll be healthier. And being that you have healthier, the body has less stress, less hormone buildup for dealing with the stress, and you can minimize the amount of cortisol that builds up, etc., and be able to more diligently interface with one another. So I would say that health is going to be probably one of the top 5 things that we have to focus on in any autonomous cultural indigenous system, because that is the driving factor to keep us together as a community.
Yeah, all things always return to their natural state. I mean, you see Beyonce now, she's promoting her veganism and it's now flooding into the mainstream. And I think it's happening that way because of how society has been driven by one type of living, and that living has not exuded the best results for people. So now people want to be healthier. It's cool, you know, it's swagged out to look good physically. So either you're doing the surgeries or you're doing the work. You see what I'm saying? And some people can't afford the surgery, so more people are going to be like, okay, I want to look good, I got to work hard. Well, first of all, dietary ideology. There are 5 things that are important as food in our paradigm. Your physical foods, which are your fruits and vegetables, basically, or what you can make from that. Your water intake in your environment. What's the state of the water? Like you look in America, you see the terrible state of municipal water, right, or whatever. It has an impact upon society. So now people are coming up with their new waters or whatever. So it's a driving force. My point is dietary transition to a better dietary lifestyle is moving all type of areas in society. And you may not be paying attention to all of it, but it is. So you got your physical foods, your water, your air, the quality of the air in your environments. That's a big, huge environmental issue that's being talked about, investment, whatever, but that's a part of what makes you, that's your food. So if we live in Brooklyn our whole life and we never go visit Belize, have family in Jamaica, or live down south, no matter how good you eat, you're not getting the proper sunlight.
You're going to be hypoxic.
Air, water, you see what I'm saying? So we need to think about these things and have an ideology. So I got your physical foods, your water, your air, your sunlight, what type of sunlight you're getting in. All of us, as we improve our business structures, need to have places where we live down south or even maybe in other countries that we can go to, communities or physical inhabitants, so we can live in places that give us the right vitality. And lastly, the most important food that you have, and I'm going to box this into 3 things, are your thinking, your emotions, and your realization of the power that makes you. Literally. Those 3 things are the undergirding power to all of the other 4 things. Treating yourself right with proper sunlight, air, and dietary and water. I'm saying that to say because that's the most avoided thing. You can have somebody who has the most pristine diet on the planet and they're an asshole.
I know about
because
that.
they have never dealt with, no, listen, this is serious. They have never dealt with, or they don't even know how to deal with, or have the honesty to deal with the emotional things that they're feeling that they don't know where it comes from. It could have came from an experience when they were 3 years old. And then they have a parent and they never asking the parent like, yo, what was happening when you were having me, when you were giving birth to me? Your emotions and your thinking are what we call permanent frequencies. You only eat a certain amount of times a day. You only drink a certain amount of times a day. You're only going to be in sunlight a certain time. You're always feeling and thinking. It's always bathing the cells of your body, your neurons, your everything is always there. And the most important thing about your thinking and your emotions is your environment. Your environment shapes that. And there's an environment that black people had where they had a knowledge of themselves so deep that they knew the forces that made themselves up, and they were aware of those things to a point where they were peaceful. There was nothing that they didn't really understand. You see what I'm saying? And there's a way that we can learn today in process where we can get to that point where we don't feel uncomfortable with ourselves. A lot of people are uncomfortable with ourselves. They just become vegan because they want to look fly, want to lose some weight, niggas want to get buff, they want to be cut up. They're missing the point. and they're psychologically unstable, emotionally unstable, and they have no connection to their ancestry or their creator in real time. You see what I'm saying? When you say somebody's lost their mind, to me that means that they don't know anything about what their mind actually is culturally. So they don't know why they're it might be some type of transit going on in the heavens and you don't know anything about that. So you got all these feelings that's going on, and because you're not raised in a culture where you're taught those things, to evaluate them like that, why am I feeling like that right now? Oh, I just feel bad. No, you might have a certain transit going, oh, so I need to pray right now. I need to go meditate because I have a lot of stress upon me. But when you know nothing about your environment, no real cosmic education based on your indigenous traditions, it leaves you at a deficit sometimes. So our food for thought is that we need to be in contact with our emotions and our thinking and our creator and our ancestry. That's at the core of knowing why you need enough sunlight. That's what makes you who you are. A world with no sunlight, you can have no black people. That's how the other people got here. And we got to go through all that, but that's how they got here. So that's a part of your food. Sunlight is food, son. Just like you say you thirsty and you need to take a drink, you need to go out there in the sunlight and bathe, solar gaze, do these things. These are not things, people think these are fads. You see what I'm saying? It's not a fad, son. It's a part of your design that your creator created you in. Think about that. So now, it's not something that I can do just because of circumstance. I feel good, let me go solar gaze. I feel good, let me go sit out in the sun. No, you need to be doing that. You need to go do that and relax and think about what's going on in your life. Think about your children, think about your family or whatever. And then you can take all those ways and they become a part of a culture now that's living. Culture is not reading the Quran or a Bible. Culture is reading the Quran and the Bible and understanding the principles in it as it applies to your life. So when you read about Abraham, you're like, damn, son, I just went through that. You see what I'm saying? That's food.
Exactly.
That's when it becomes food. Other than that, it becomes rhetoric. Niggas get crazy. You ain't believe my God, you going to hell. You know what? Or you're not vegan. You're not fruitarian. You're going to hell. You're going to food hell. The parasite's gonna kill you. Like this shit becomes crazy. But at the core of it, what makes it not crazy is when you can live it, you can experience it, and you can really comprehend everything about it. So the fad of moving towards health, I think, is a natural progression where people are on a search to improve. You know what I mean? Their lives. And if you're not improving your physical body, your temple, and your space, you're not improving anything. So I think that health is the new swag. Like it is. Mm-hmm. And we are in an advantageous situation because we have been progenitors of certain ideologies that are going to form into something that's going to take over the world. You know what I mean? So
Right. Like you mentioned in the Nation of Islam, I'm thinking if they didn't address the parasites, as you said, it gets kind of crazy. Right. Is it sustainable if we don't address the parasites, if parasites are truly influencing negative or detrimental behavior?
Well, I think let me say something about that.
There you go.
See, it's progressions. It's progressions. Our children on this parasite thing, our children will be way more advanced than us. Our specific children, us. At the time, see, the messenger put out 2 books, How to Eat to Live, books 1, book 2. He told you not to eat meat then. You know what I mean? He was telling you what he knew was good at the time. We've caught up with enough information from the past and science that caught up with information to improve upon what he said in the 60s, double fold. So I think that, I'm saying that to say, hindsight is always 20/20 vision. You can always look back at a moment and say, if they had this, but they had what they needed at the time that they thought was new.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Them not eating flesh was the cool thing.
Right.
Now we go way into the whole matrix of, yo, son, like, yo, the parasites are literally controlling your neurons.
Right.
That's a different kind of conversation for somebody who's just vegan. They're like, huh? What you talking about?
Somebody like me, I throw it on them early.
yeah. But look, I already know the new thing that we're not even touching.
Right.
Like when people start talking about we talking about genetic modifying organisms and parasites, but by the next generation, they're gonna be talking about magnetically operating forces on you. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not just a parasite. What energy in a cell gives rise to a toxin morphing itself into a parasite?
Right.
What energy in a cultural dynamic? What ways are good to eat? And then what happens is the people in the past, they made their progressions. Now we're making our progression. The parasites are controlling people, and they need to be educated about those things.
Right.
But there's different levels to a parasite. Like you can have magnetic fields that are actually parasitic to a human aura structure.
Right.
And you can have a physical food that's the same thing that's
Right.
carrying that weak energy.
Yeah.
And I think that the education has to be present. I think it is present now. If you go through the Melanin Encyclopedia, we're talking about all of those things at a level that we can at this point. And I know it'll be improved upon. So the point is, we as a people, we always go back to our center.
Right.
Like we always gonna find our center. Because we are made from a thing that can't be broken. The creator. Like we always gonna find our center. We just have to recognize that it's happening and do our job to put the progressions that we've been called to put together to help others and ourselves to continue to do that. So the parasites are getting people like, yo, that is the problem.
Right.
And there's levels to that dynamic in the
Yeah.
conversation.
I want to add how I see parasites is not only from the food, is also external. Anything that's living off the energy of somebody else is straight parasite. Pretty black and white to me. And you know, I do the dietary lifestyle to counter that in all aspects, inside, outside, all over. You know. If we're gonna close out, before we close out, I want to make sure you state where we could find more of you, Divine, and more of you, Ali.
Well, I'm Divine Prospect from Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. You guys can find me on YouTube. You can type in Kingdom Harbinger Ministries and the YouTube channel will come up. On Facebook, type in Divine Prospect. You'll see my page on there. On Instagram, it's Kingdom Moments on IG. And you can email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. And if anything that I said interests you guys, or if anybody's interested in knowing more about our organization, we'll be more than happy to give it out to you guys. We have free consultation for different things. And you can just reach out to us on those avenues and, you know, we'll get back to you.
Indeed. And anybody who wants to reach me, you can reach me at governmentreparations.org. On Instagram, I'm Dr. Ali Muhammad. You can just Google Dr. Ali Muhammad. All kind of information is going to come up. And we always, all over the country, we got, you know, various local jurisdictions set up. And we thank Ready4R, because Ready4R has come on the scene like an earthquake and really improved the media dynamic in a way that we need it. You know what I mean? Because the type of quality information that you're covering is the new curb on information. You know what I mean? And so this is a technology, and thank you for putting it together the way that you put it together and being diligent at it and covering all the people that you've covered thus far, because you've made people known that we haven't known before, or improved, you know, like myself, improved the ability of audience who didn't know anything about me.
I also want to say shout out to Nicholas Bookstore, because that's what we here right now. Come out and support black businesses. Nicholas Bookstore is out here.
570 Fulton in Brooklyn.
Yes, sir. And you come out here, they have everything for your indigenous needs that you need out here. Also, me and Ali, we will have further talks in the future. This is just something to see if you're really interested in unification. Because, you know, people want to see people sit down together and argue and contend. But this is the most necessary conversations that we need in order to progress forward as a people. And if we don't have unity at this level, then it's not going to work, you know. So I want to thank my brother for taking time and R for setting up the discussion.
Yes, sir.
I'm not even on my own channel. I'm
Ready4R. Appreciate it, God. Appreciate you.
All right, so I want to say shalom, shalom, assalamualaikum, and black power to family out there. So,
peace. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Yes, yes.